All righty. And record. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's A Month of Service presentation of maintaining and adding value to your home. We want to thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the in this collaboration. Also included is the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, and joining us today we have Ms. Rachel Gutierrez. And also on behalf of Neighborhood Recovery, we have presenting today Ms. Nikki Collins with Keys Real Estate Services, as well as Clifford Joe with GI Inspections, who will be joining us in just a moment. But they're here to provide you with information today about maintaining and adding value to your home. Also included in our partnership, we have the Earl Carl Institute, Harris Central Appraisal District, Lone Star Legal Aid, Houston Bar Association, Texas Legal Services Center, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and the the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. And together we make up A Month of Service. So again, we're here to provide you guys with information today. And we want to thank you for tuning in. There's a lot of information that we're going to get covered for you today, and we want to go ahead and move right on into our presentation. But we're going to first do introductions. So we want to have Ms. Rachel Gutierrez with the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods go ahead and introduce herself. And we can go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Nia. Good afternoon, everyone. As Nia mentioned, my name is Rachel Gutierrez. I am a City of Houston employee. I work for the well, what a day. I work for the City of Houston Department of Neighborhoods Office of Neighborhood Engagement as a community outreach coordinator. As Nia mentioned, we are a part of this amazing partnership, providing you all, the everyday citizen, free educational resources, tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your everyday lives. A lot of times people seek out information when there is a need or a negative impact on their situation, or they've come across a disaster or something of that nature. But we want to make sure that we provide you the information for preparation for an event that maybe could occur within yourself or somebody that you know. So it's all about being prepared, being educated, knowing what to do in order to help you through any events that happen with yourself or someone that you know. Please continue to be a part of our program. Invite those that you know that you meet on a regular basis, whether it be at your place of faith, your gym, your community centers, your grocery stores. If it's not you, then more than likely you'll know somebody that could benefit from this information. So we ask that you continue to share the information, be involved. If there is something that, a topic or idea that we currently may not have available, feel free to reach out to myself or Nia to give us your feedback, and we will work hard to try to put that information out there for you. So once again, we thank you for your participation and enjoy the presentation this afternoon.
Okay, looks like we've got Cliff. Do you want to go ahead and give a brief introduction, and then we'll have Nikki give an introduction, and then she can move on into the presentation.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, forgive me. I just got a new computer and getting everything set up, so I'm like, okay, we're rolling. Hello, everyone. My name is Clifford Joe. I am the owner of GI Inspections. I've been an inspector now for maybe 14, 15 years now. And I specialize in general residential inspections and commercial inspections. So if you have any questions during the presentation, I guess you can inbox, ask the question online, and we'll go from there.
Okay, Great. And before you do your introduction, Nikki, let me just say, give the disclaimer, that information that we do present here today is for educational purposes. We do know that that you have individual needs, and we do encourage you to reach out to our presenters if you do have something real specific about your detailed personal situation. However, that this is an open platform, and we are broadcasting live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. So we want you to keep in mind when you're asking your questions to try to keep them as general as you possibly can. So that your personal detail information isn't getting out there for everyone. So feel free to type into the comment section or type into the chat if you're joining us on Zoom if you have a question that you'd like to address aloud, or unmute yourself at the end of the presentation and you can ask directly as well. So do keep that in mind. I meant to say that earlier, but go right ahead, Miss Nikki, introduce yourself and we'll go right into your presentation.
Hi, my name is Nikki Collins. I am a second generation real estate professional. Sometimes it does feel oppressional. I graduated with a master's degree. Let me share the screen because a lot of this is on there. Okay, so I have a background in information technology. I received a real estate master's degree from Texas A&M, and I've been a real estate professional for I think it's still 19 years, 19, 20 years, something like that. But this was the field that I chose because it allowed me to be bossy in a professional way. So let's get into talking about what our properties are worth and how we can make changes, edits, and enhancements to our property while at the same time being aware of what those changes will do with regard to the financial asset part of our properties. So the thing we focus on, and anytime you're talking about something that is an asset that has value, is what is the return on it. So the phrase, the acronym tossed around is the ROI, the return on your investment. So we're going to talk about three different things. The first thing we're going to talk about is cost versus value. A lot of times we assume that the cost is the value, but that's not true. Just because you pay a price for something doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it's worth. It's like when you want to go see a concert and there is a there's a sticker price on the concert ticket, but it's a really hot commodity. And so the sticker price was $25. At $25, it's sold out. The bots were going, the scalpers were working, there's nothing available left to buy. And so the cost for that was $25. However, when it goes into the secondary market, we might find out that the value for that same thing was $125. By the same token, we have a concert, the ticket is $25. Nobody wants to go. And so all of a sudden you find they're giving away, it's a 2-for-1, it's a buy one, get 4 free. And you find out that even though the cost was $25, the value may have only been worth 10. And so even though you may be spending a certain amount of money to make changes, edits, and enhancements to your property, you may find out that the value is worth more than what you spent. And sometimes you'll find out that the value was worth far less than what you spent. So the reason that value can be so different from cost is because there are two types of value that we like to consider. The first value is pecuniary value. Pecuniary value is the one that people are most aware of. It's the dollars and cents value of a thing. We say, I'm getting ready to buy pajamas for my girls. And I was telling my mother, I said, I'm not going to buy these pajamas because I know that in 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to be in the little season where the stuff starts going on sale. And so even though the pecuniary value is $16, it's really not. I know what that price will be. And so that helps us to kind of keep a relatively informed purchasing decision when we're able to make the value a dollars and cents issue. Here's where we typically get hung up, in personal value. That's how we end up overspending, overdoing, overchanging because of how something makes us feel. It has very little to do with what it's actually worth on any market, primary, secondary, tertiary. None of those things play a part when our feelings get involved. And so it is why I have a christening dress that has begun to yellow a little bit, but my mom probably paid, I don't know, $20 back when the earth was cooling, to buy this christening dress. But for me, it has a value that I can't even assign a number to because it was the gown I was christened in. And so I want to save it for future generations. And so we want to make sure that we don't confuse those things that give us the ooey gooeys or those things that give us the ick, because sometimes we'll say, I'm not going to do this because I don't like it. And so we lose money because we assume that our entire market feels the way that we do. And so we want to make sure that we're always keeping our return on investment in mind. Sometimes that return on investment is pecuniary, sometimes it's personal. And we want to make sure that we keep those two things in mind as we're making decisions. So now let's talk about return on investment, what it is. So it measures the profit you have made or could have made on an investment. And we already talked about cost versus value. So when we're talking about return on investment, we say that I built this product for $10 and I'm able to sell this product now for $11. That's a 10% return on investment. I got back 10% more than I spent. And so when we're talking about dollars and cents, it's easy to calculate the return on an investment. Sometimes you might say, I need to make at least this much for it to be worth it. Sometimes we'll say, I can lose no more than this much and it still be worth it. And so we want to be mindful of how much are you willing to spend and also how much are you willing to lose as you make those decisions. So right now, what we're going through, and we are feeling it through every market, not just the real estate markets, is money is expensive. When interest rates go up, everything goes up and it trickles down throughout the entire chain. So right now, money is expensive, and money is not just expensive for you and I, it's expensive for those who provide labor. It's expensive for those who provide materials. It's expensive for the trucks that are driving and bringing the supplies that we need. It's expensive everywhere along the line. And so it makes it more expensive to do those renovation and repair projects that we would like to do. Wood no longer costs what wood used to cost. Let me tell you, right now, after Beryl, it's a wonderful time to be a person who puts in roofs and fences, because it's not wonderful for the purchase of the supply, but it's good for the pay on the back end, because everybody, it's a high dollar thing right now. If you didn't need a fence before the hurricane and your fence made it through, wait a minute, and you got to let this little part cool off before you start making those repairs. And so you want to be always conscious of what's the supply looking like in the market, what's the demand looking like in the market, and how much is it costing to get your materials and to do your labor before you make decisions on changing things in your assets. So two terms that we hear bandied about a lot are sellers and buyers markets. So how do we know what it is? How can we, what is it? How do we know when we're in one? And how does this affect us? When we first got into, I think that COVID helps us to really understand sellers and buyers market. When we first got into COVID and the world was locked down and no one could do anything, no one could go anywhere. Properties were sitting on the market for a long time. You couldn't go tour them. You couldn't go, it was just getting really difficult to sell properties. And so buyers could go in and almost ask for anything because they were trying to get those properties out. right? So that meant that costs were coming down because the buyer pool was small and the seller pool was large. Then we got a little further into COVID, and how people worked was changing, how people played was changing. People were home more, and they were more concerned about how their homes looked, what they felt, how they worked for them. And so people were out in the market buying. And overnight, we switched from a buyer's market into a seller's market. As a result, housing prices went through the roof. There was a large body of buyers because interest rates came way down. Money was cheap, 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 cheap. So interest rates came way down. Housing prices went way up. There were lots of buyers in the market, but we are still in a housing shortage. And so even though there were lots of buyers, there wasn't a whole lot of inventory, not to match the number of buyers. The supply didn't match the demand. And so whenever supply is high and demand is low, we're in a buyer's market. Whenever supply is low and demand is high, we're in a seller's market. So how does this impact our return? If you are a buyer in a buyer's market, your return is going to be great because theoretically, you should be able to get more for your money than you would have otherwise. If you are a buyer in a seller's market, your return is going to decline because you're going to spend more money and typically get less than you would have been able to get before we entered into a strong seller's market. In a perfect world, we would stay kind of in an even market where everybody leaves the table mad. That means you had a good negotiation if nobody's really happy when you leave. And so if you're in one of those markets, then one person will definitely have come out more victorious than the other. So now how do we know when to do what? So one of the phrases that they use in real estate contracts, and I guess other contracts, but I don't know real estate, is that time is of the essence. Time is of the essence says that we must perform these certain things within this amount of time. And so the things we want to consider is this: how long will you own the property? When we talk about length of time owning the property, we get a little bit into those personal value things, right? Will I make a very expensive change to my property that may not have market appeal, but I really enjoy if I'm not going to be here to enjoy it long term? One of the ways that I've as an appraiser, we talk about depreciating assets. Everything loses a little bit of its value over time. And so even in my personal life, when I'm justifying expenses, I'll say, well, this purse costs X amount of dollars, but I'll hold this purse for 4 years. So this purse is really only costing me X amount of dollars per year. If I break it down into months, I'm at like, listen, this is $10 a month. This purse is completely worth it. And that's how you have to look at the expenses that you're making in terms of how long you will own the property, especially if it's going to have more personal value than pecuniary value. We're saying that I really enjoy bamboo floors in a neighborhood where nobody has bamboo floors. And so it's going to cost a little bit more to put those in, but will I be here long enough to enjoy it long enough so that I am not upset if I don't get this money back? So you also have to consider whether it's your homestead property or an investment property. I'm going to live in this, which means that I'm going to enjoy this, versus I'm making these changes in an effort to sell. I'm making these changes in an effort to rent out, to lease out. If it's not for your own personal enjoyment, if you won't get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, then you want to be really mindful of the changes that you make and not overdo or underdo for a market that is not you. If you are not your own market, you need to consider who you are marketing to and how quickly you need to make the changes in order to appeal to that market. So lots of time. Cliff is going to talk in a little bit about what in the real estate world we call deferred maintenance. And it can go over to capital improvements, but a lot of times it's deferred maintenance. And when people are preparing to sell, as an appraiser, we get this all the time. We get a list of all the things that people have done, right? They're really excited about the things they've done. They're like, well, we put on a new roof. We put in a new AC. They'll say, we painted, or we changed out the carpet. And they will want us to say, oh, we're going to add, X amount of dollars to the value because you've done those things. The only problem is those things are deferred maintenance. Those are things that you do that just help you to meet the status quo. It helps your house to not be falling apart. Yes, you replaced your roof because your roof had damage and it was leaking and it was time to replace. Maybe it wasn't damaged or leaking yet, but you had a 20-year roof and we were at year 19. It was time for a roof. There's a certain point you get to with your HVAC systems when it's just simply time for replacing. Paint, it's just time to replace. Carpet, it's just time to replace. And so those are those things that you do simply because it's time to do them. Now let's talk about the difference when you go into a capital improvement. When you start going into a capital improvement, it's where you are doing a thing that may have needed to be done, but you took it to a level beyond what it was before. If your neighborhood normally has, 10, 15-year roofs. I don't know if they make it 10 or 15. I don't really know 20 or 30. It's neither here nor there. And you go in and you put in a 30-year roof. Well, that's now a capital improvement because theoretically that roof should last longer than the roofs that they've been putting in the area. If you, we've lived in our home for a lot of years, and I have watched the trajectory of how the house has changed. When we first moved in, we had linoleum floors. Then we had round 1 of the ceramic tile. Then we went to round 2 of the ceramic tile. I think we're on round 4 currently of the ceramic tile. And as we have changed the flooring out, it's met more and more of the standard of what's current today. So it's not just we made a change of this linoleum is old, so we put fresh linoleum, It's about changing and bringing it and making it current. And so the way that you know the difference between the deferred maintenance and the capital improvements is, have I kept up with what's going on around me, or have I just made something to keep my house, essentially as it was? And so if you've done things that help to keep in current standing with what's happening in the markets, then you can typically count those things as capital improvements. Okay, so now we're getting ready to sell a home. How do we know what to do, what changes to be made? There are 2 ways that I want you to think. The first way I want you to think is I want you to think like a buyer. And I want you to think about what would you look for when buying a home. I'm not necessarily talking, I'm talking more about your deal breakers than your preferences, right? If it doesn't have this, it's not going to work at all. If it doesn't have that, it's not going to work at all. And that's in an effort, thinking about the deal breakers as opposed to the preferences will help you to think more like the market and less like yourself. On the page, you see 2 pieces of stone. One is a granite and one is a marble. And I use those 2 pieces because the granite in this piece gives more of what marble normally looks like. And that piece of marble, because it depends on where you cut on the slab, right? So that piece of marble looks a lot more like what we are accustomed to seeing in granite. So sometimes you may say, oh, I want to get the Carrara marble because I like the name of Carrara marble, but does your market say I need to spend that much on Carrara marble? Or would granite or quartz, which costs a lot less, be a good decision? Would a buyer walk in and be like, oh, yes, I'm going to pay $10,000 more because they had that Carrara marble? Or would they go next door and say, you know what, I'm willing to, I'll go with this granite because I'm saving the $10,000. So you want to make those kind of decisions of, am I willing to spend this much more to have this thing? Or is it better to pocket this money and just have something that may not be quite as expensive? The second way I want you to think is I want you to think like an appraiser. And if you are preparing to sell, I would always recommend that you go and look at houses that are for list in your surrounding area. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to know what's happening in the homes around you. If everyone has moved to solid surface, if no one has linoleum anymore, if no one has laminate countertops anymore, if everyone now has backsplashes and you don't have those things, people are going to go to the other homes and you will be a last option. Or if they purchase your home as they're touring it, they're hearing the cash register in their head, and it's telling them how much they're going to have to spend to make the home what they want it to be. And as their prices are racking up on this side, what they're willing to spend on the sales price is going down on the other. So you want to make sure that you're first time you ever want to keep up with the Joneses, just a little bit. You don't want to be like the ridiculous Joneses, just the regular one. And then the other thing is you want to consider is quality or quantity. Sometimes less is more if it's a better quality of a purchase. The next thing I want you to consider is you don't want to over improve. You don't want to go if the standard in the house is just to have vinyl plank flooring, then you don't necessarily need to bring in, I'm making something up, Indonesian walnut, imported from somewhere. It's not necessary. You're not going to get that money back. It's not going to be worth it. Then are you not doing enough? Only you know what area you're in. There are certain areas where you need to bring in Indonesian walnut if you intend to get top dollar. So you have to kind of really know your area, what's happening in the market around you. That's when a realtor could really be helpful, or an appraiser. We look at different sides of that transaction. The realtor should be informed in what's happening in that market. The appraiser should be able to tell you whether you're actually going to get your money out of it, whether you're going to get your money back. And then you want to know how the market is moving. We were in a super hot market for a long time. But right now, what we're beginning to see is that markets are cooling. And so that means that if you didn't get in while the iron was hot, you may not see as big of a return as you would have seen now, as you will see now that the market has begun to cool. So you want to always be mindful of the wins and the how much you're doing when you make the changes. So low cost changes. I always tell anybody the easiest change you can make is to do a really good clean, because sometimes people will say if they didn't do these simple things, then perhaps there are really, if she didn't sweep, there's no way she cleaned the blinds. I'm saying that's me and my children. But that's kind of the same mindset. If you see the evidence of a leak, right? If you see water spot damage where the sheetrock was not repaired, even if you had the leak repaired in the attic, and so the leak is no longer there, I'm going to assume that the leak was never repaired, because surely if you had repaired the leak, you would have repaired the sheetrock. So it's those kinds of things. You want to refresh your painting. You want to replace or repair damaged or stained items, holes in the walls or doors, carpet that has stains that won't come out with regular cleaning. You want to try to make those things that really don't cost as much as some of the big ticket items. The big ticket items are those things that are really going to move the needle. In the world of real estate, we say two things sell houses, kitchens and bathrooms. And that becomes even apparent in the forms that we use when we are appraising residential properties. The only questions they ask us in the condition section, you may have painted everything, you may have put floors everywhere, you may have done all kinds of things. They ask us two questions. When is the last time that the kitchens or bathrooms were renovated and updated? And that helps them to get that helps the appraiser get a gauge on what the condition is like. Because we're like, the paint is lovely all throughout, but that kitchen is from the 60s. And so all somebody would come in and say is that they got to do an entire kitchen, even though everything else is painted and the floors are new and all of that. So we want to think about, if we're trying to make them move the needle in a big way, then those are the two areas that you really could focus on. Then in Texas, a question we ask a lot is to pool or not to pool. You know, you will hear people say, well, I want to put a pool in to increase my property value. Don't do it. From an appraiser to the rest of the world, don't do it. If that's the reason you want a pool, don't do it. I have a pool. I have a pool because the kids, when it's not blazing, swim every day. But it also means that I have increased electricity bills. It means that the homeowner's insurance is more expensive because our liability is great. There are just some things that happen when you have a pool in your home that really, some people don't want them. They don't care that it's 112 degrees outside. They don't want the work, the responsibility, none of those things that come with pool ownership. So putting in a pool is 100% a personal value decision. If you feel like you're going to be there to enjoy it, to reap the benefits of having it, by all means, put a pool in. But if you are going to put in this 40, 50, 60, 90, $120,000 pool so that it will increase your values, do not do it. Are there certain markets where people expect a water feature? Yes, there are certain segments of the market where it's even if that pool just sits there looking beautiful, they expect for you to have one. But in most markets, in most segments of the market, that's not the case. And then the last thing is floor and decor. And the thing I say about floor and decor is decorate and dress for market appeal, not personal appeal. So you don't want to, if there are some color choices that we've made in my home that go along with what I like, because I have no intention of going anywhere else. And so I know that this won't be people's cup of tea, but I don't plan for people to have to live in it. But if we were ever to say, I think we're going to put this on the market, I know 100% that I would have to go and dial some of this down before we could let anybody come in here and see it for the purpose of purchase, because it really is suited to my own personal taste, how I like things, and it doesn't necessarily reflect market appeal. So if you're getting ready to make some changes, make some edits, some amendments, some adjustments to your property, what do you do? First thing is make a plan. I think that you should put things on paper. A lot of times we get a harebrained idea and we go out, we say, I should do this. We go out, we begin to purchase, we begin to make appointments with people to come and give us references and recommendations and estimates, but we don't really know what it is that we want to do, and you end up kind of spiraling out of control. So you make a plan. When I say be honest, my thing is be honest about what I'm spilling, what I'm willing to spend, what I want to make, or how much I'm willing to lose. And you want to be very honest and specific about those things, because otherwise you'll end up in the same thing where you've spent too much, you've lost too much, you didn't make enough. And whatever you do, do not overextend. Do not say, I can't really afford to spend this, but I'll spend it because I believe I'll make fill in the blank, because there's no guarantee. The real estate market is like all the other markets. There are no guarantees. And so you want to make the best decision that you can while also protecting your own best interests. And so that's it. If you have any additional questions, you can reach me at 281-414-5709 or at my email address, nvcollins, nvcollins, at keysres.com. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Nikki. I will go ahead and, Mr. Clifford, if you want to go ahead and go into your presentation. And then once we conclude with that, we'll go ahead with Q&A.
And I already made you co-host, Cliff, so you should be able to do your screen share.
Okay, let's see where I can hit my screen share on here.
You should be a green button on the bottom of the screen.
I got it. Let's see. There we go. Okay, there we go. I was setting
It's
everything up.
opening.
Okay, can everyone hear me now?
We can hear you. Okay, it's on the About Me screen.
That's it.
Okay, all right.
Just a little bit about me again. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I served 14 years in the military. Got out, decided to do something with myself. Started out as a realtor, but then I became a professional home inspector. Decided to push it a little further and got the master certification, master inspector certification. Studied under HUD Inspire. That's the program with the HUD that's kind of changing right now. Then I got my HVAC technician license. Went and got my certification as project manager, and then went on to drone certification. So, as a matter of fact, you have to have those now. The way they're making us operate. But what we're going to be talking about today is the maintenance of a home. And let me see if I can move this real quick. There we go. As a homeowner, it's always best to have at least a minimum knowledge of maintaining your home. Common issues in the greater Houston area are such as your roof, your foundation, your HVAC. These are known to pop up far more often than loose doorknobs or a room that's rarely used. Go to the next one. And by the way, just hit the inbox and Nia will respond if there are any questions. And just let me know. By definition, we'll get back to this. By definition, general maintenance means the regular care and preservation of property and equipment to maintain, enhance its appearance that's typically performed on seasonal or as needed basis. So seasonal for me is my furnace and my HVAC system. As needed, sometimes there are things in the house, just a spring cleaning or just normal wear and tear. You may have a dishwasher. It's been going strong for 10 years, and then all of a sudden it goes out. As needed. It's time to replace it. My common areas of concern with what I see is the roof, the foundation, the plumbing, the electrical, and the HVAC system. And right now we're in one of the hottest months of the year, and we're dealing with HVAC systems. I get calls on these all the time where they need someone to come out, and really the systems are dated. They're designed to only last about 12, 15 years before they really just stop operating below the efficiency levels. So once you start having those problems, it's time to settle down and go ahead and make a replacement. And I know, so we're going to go into this, but I'm going to say it now. Sometimes we will replace the outside condenser and not the evaporator coil with the furnace in the attic. When you do that, the system is not operating at its best capacity. You actually lower the efficiency level when you do that. This is one pour adhesive strips. This is related to lack of attic ventilation, causing moisture buildup that can penetrate the underlayment, causing the shingles to lift. High wind impact is another cause. Actually, another cause to have your shingles lifting. As a matter of fact, when I look at my the house I did yesterday, all four sides of that house had at least 10 to 15 shingles that were missing. And at that point, I think you're really past the let's patch it up and keep moving phase. I think you have the replacement stage, and they are so far behind right now. If you were to call a roofing company to come out, they may not be able to get to you till about 5 or 6 days later, because they're just that backed up, and they're moving all through Houston, the Conroe area, even down in Galveston. As a matter of fact, I have one inspection tomorrow in Kima where it's just a roof inspection. This is just, when you see your roof looking like this, when you start seeing these little lines where you start to see the underlayment, that's done. The roof is aged out. When it's aged out beyond this, you will start seeing, if you don't see shingle losses, you'll start seeing some moisture intrusion. And when you let your roof get like this and ages out to this point, you do more damage to the underlayment. And when you do more damage to the underlayment, it starts to wither away. Now you're going to get moisture intrusion because now you have that moisture working its way through the decking when it starts to dry rot. And then you go up there and you start walking on your roof, you may fall in, especially when your roof is looking like this. That means it's aged out for some time. It should have been replaced. But sometimes we know it's dealing with the insurance companies. It's it's insurance companies. Um, Sometimes if you're renting the property owner, things of that nature, just general finance, it's hard. So, but you should never let it get to this point. If you can prevent it, get in front of it, because I can guarantee you this roof was taken a while back, but if a good storm came through after, like the one we just had, I'm pretty sure it's shot. Roof replacement. This is one from a recent inspection that I went out to do. And what I'm looking at the top is all of those bundles of shingles that are stacked on top. If you are out getting your roof replaced and you're home that day that they're doing the roof and you see that they're stacking those out like that, have them take them down and just stack them flat at the slope of the roof. Because what all of those packages that are at the bottom, they're probably damaged shingles because all of the weight on the top and that bend, because you're at the roof ridge, so you may have torn some of those. And those are the ones you do not want to get used on your roof because you're not going to get the maximum efficiency out of those shingles that are damaged. So they're going on damage. So now you may have an issue where you have premature roof leaks or something. And then when you call out and you say, well, I just had my roof replaced. And then the roofing company or the insurance company, someone come out and look at it and say, oh, well, these shingles are damaged. And you're not going to get a warranty coverage on them because the warranty was voided when the guys got out there and stacked them on ridge like that. And that happens a lot. I see a lot of that. And I have to tell them all the time not to do this type of stacking. I know it's hot. I know we're trying to get this thing done in a timely manner, but there's another method of doing this. But so if you're a homeowner and you see this, stop them because you're going to do more damage than good in the long run. A host of things I'm looking at. One, there's no insulation in this attic. This was an older home. No attic insulation. Had a great AC system, but no attic insulation. So you basically, your unit is running and it doesn't need to be running. And this, matter of fact, this is a property out in, I think this was in Port Arthur. It was a rehab property. And it was an older one. I'm looking at some of the knob and tube wiring. So this house, they kept having AC problems. One, because the ACs never stopped running. They never stopped running because you didn't have good insulation in the house. The insulation in the house makes a big difference into how well your house is going to stay warm or how well it's going to stay cool. So definitely when you're as a homeowner and you're looking at your property and you go in the attic and you see something like this where there's no insulation, go ahead and add some. You'll notice the difference right away. And this insulation is falling. One of the reasons this insulation is falling, I was looking at the little granules on it. This house had some moisture intrusion. This was a home that was probably built, I think this was built in the 80s, if I remember correctly. And they had the wall insulation that was put up here. Well, when you start getting moisture intrusion, that the backing on that insulation is not going to stand up. It's just going to start falling down. It's going to cause it, the water will cause it to mat up. And when the insulation starts to mat up, it'll just start falling down. So now this is on the second floor of the home. The room that was on the other side of this was a family room, and it was super hot in that room because of the insulation not being good. Let's see. This is just a simple algae growth. And we always want to make sure we, on hardy plank side of the house that doesn't get a lot of sunlight, you're going to see some algae growth. And this is pretty light. I've seen it a lot worse in certain areas, but you don't want that to build up because it can be a problem later. And when you power wash it, You can't power wash with a strong power washer because now you're gonna knock the top paint surface off the hardy plank. So there's an easy method to it, but if you decide to take on that task of cleaning it yourself, just know that you may knock the top surface paint off if you don't know what you're really doing. So me personally, I just always believe that if I do not know what I'm doing 100%, I'm going to call a professional in and let them do it from there. Let's see. Again, this hardy plank trim damage, but that was due to a lot of stuff that this property owner had stored outside. Well, what he did, and he may not have known, but he created an entry point for moisture. He also created an entry point for pests, because that by looking at it, I can tell it had been there. That break had been there for some time. So you always want to get there and make those repairs as soon as you see them, because if you prolong those repairs, they're only going to get worse. Go to the next one. This was a house. You may not be able to see it, but in the middle window, slightly to the right, and just look up and down, you can see a streak. That's a brand new home. As a matter of fact, that home was almost $1 million, but that was the end result of some of the windows when the seal started to break. Now, here's something to bear in mind. These windows are replaceable. They tell me that there are kits out there that you can use to help remove the moisture. I have yet to see one do it 100%, remove the moisture. So I was like, I'm kind of on the fence about it. But sometimes you may have a home. That's why it's important to keep those stickers that come with the windows, leave them in place, because your stickers, those rating stickers in those windows, the north side of your house may have a different rating than the windows that was installed on the south side of your house. Even the east and the west, the ratings are different. So when you replace that window, it has to match that rating. Also, something to bear in mind is sometimes your windows are still covered by the manufacturer if it was discovered that the problem was not related to you, the homeowner, or the contractor. It just wore out. And there is there's a limit on it. And if you notify the window manufacturer, and a lot of times that rating sticker or that manufacturer sticker is on that window, you will know. You can call them. They will deliver the window to you, or you may have to go pick it up, but they will not install it. You're going to have someone else install it, and it's going to be with a fee. But the bright side is you can get yourself another window. Let's see. This is dry rot around the frame. And this is caused because the flashing at the top of the window was not installed correctly. So a lot of times, when we're looking at our house, it's those little things that make a big difference as a homeowner. Little things like flashings, like that J flashing, that home was actually built and someone forgot to put the J flashings in. And I know the year that it was built, they were required to put them in. So somewhere along the way, that was skipped. And that was the end result, was that premature moisture intrusion. We're gonna go to the next one. The dishwasher backflow. This was caused by the blocked or the unbalanced drain line. This house had a drain line. The way it's supposed to be installed is called a high loop method, where it's up along the back side of your sink. The entire hose was resting on the floor of the cabinet. So there was nothing but food and everything that was blocking it. So the water has to come somewhere and out through that drain line here and into the sink. As a matter of fact, it was funny because I just happened to hear it coming up and turned it just in time to catch the water to drain toward the sink. So you always want to keep that open end towards the sink. So if it ever happens, the water pours out of that opening and into the sink instead of onto the countertop and possibly onto the floor. So this was just a dirty stove. Grease buildup, and like the appraiser stated, it may not look right, but sometimes, little things like this can make a big difference. One, it's a safety issue. If you're trying to sell the home, I would recommend cleaning your stove and your oven, because when a person look at this, they already know I don't want to cook on it. And you may get a potential buyer that may say, okay, I don't want that stove. I need another one. And they may make you replace it. So it's always a good idea to have it clean and ready to go at all times. Let's see. This was just an elevation test. This was a home. This home was built on a pier and beam type foundation. So I was looking at the movement of the foundation. And just a side note, every home that you have, they're going to have some level of foundation movement. It's very, very common. More common with pier and beam than slab on grade foundations. But I will tell you, one method to prolong the possibility of foundation movement is good drainage around your home. Trees that are too close to your home, I recommend installing root barriers because that can help keep those tree roots away from the foundation. Sometimes we add these pavers to the side, or we'll add a sidewalk or walkway to the side of our homes. I don't recommend doing that because when water starts to work its way down, it's trapped between that walkway that you added or those pavers you added, and it can't escape. So it sits there and it pulls up, and as it pulls up, it's just pretty much removing the pad that the house actually sits on. So good drainage around the home is always needed to, kind of stave off that inevitability of having some foundation issues. Let's see, this is, when you see this, if you're out looking at a home, and this is just for those who are out there looking, you see these squares cut into the concrete or something, that's, lets you know that they've had some repairs to the foundation. It's not a bad thing, it's actually a good thing because that tells you that yes, the home has some foundation issues and they made some corrections. So it's always, just, and you may not see it in the seller's disclosure, or you may see it. In case they missed it and you spot something like this, you know that the foundation has been worked on, and you start asking what happened, when, how many piers, do you have any documentation on it? Is the warranty transferable? Things of that nature. You want to know up front. Let's see. Yes, some more. The flooring, that was just something that was real simple. They should have taken care of that. But if you're walking from that floor that's more laminate to tile, and that little tread piece was missing, you can possibly injure your feet walking in that, especially at night when you're not paying attention. AC drainage, when your primary line backs up, it backs up into this drain pan, which is your secondary line. That tells me, that much rust and corrosion tells me that this AC has had some issues for some time. That's why it's always a good idea to have your system serviced at least twice a year, because you may have a block and it's draining through the secondary line and you may not even know it. And then when that secondary line starts to back up like this one did, and it starts leaking into the home because of the overflow, and it may not have a shutoff device tied to it, that's when you know you have a problem. By then, it's more costly because not only you have to change out your drain pan, you may have to change out some areas of the ceiling, add some more insulation that got matted, and it becomes more of a costly issue in the short run. But in the long run, if you have this service twice a year, you can catch little things like this before they become bigger issues. As a matter of fact, I was out on an inspection this morning before I came in to do this workshop. And the crazy thing is, one of the rooms did not have an air register. So I don't even know how they're going to get airflow in that room. And it just so happened, I walked back in there for something else and noticed it. So sometimes when we're looking at newly constructed homes and we're thinking there are no issues with newly constructed homes, no, we see far more in newly constructed homes, even AC problems, because that same house, it actually was a duplex. One of the AC units did not have the right size wire gauges to be installed to operate that system. So the fan motor was running at a low speed. So little things count, and you have to know it. So you make sure if you're ever out there buying, ask questions. Let's see, this is another one. This is actually a video. I don't know if I can get it to kick in. No, well, maybe. no, can't get it to kick in. But what it is, this PC, if you can see my mouse, this is called an ID blower. That blower was vibrating so hard because it was out of balance. Whoever installed it didn't use all the screws that were needed to hold it in place. So over time, with all that vibration, it basically warped the motor. And the AC company, from what I was told by the homeowner, she contacted the builder. The builder told her, oh, it's common. This happens all the time. You should not be able to hear this unit stumbling and rumbling in the middle of the night. And that's exactly what it was. And it was in the attic, and it was on the far end of her house, and you can still hear it in the middle of the night. So it's like little things make the biggest difference. If you have a building tell you this is common, or someone tell you it's common, and you don't, you may not, you may have second thoughts about it. Just get a second opinion on it. Let's see, where are we? Okay, this is air ducts. The air ducts are in poor condition. These are old air ducts. And what I'm looking at, that gray area right here, those are old. Those were some of the, when they were left from metal air ducts, they start doing insulated air ducts. This is what they were using. And this is usually with the foil type insulation. There's plastic over these. Over time, when they peel back, that mesh piece over here wears up, and then they get to the insulation itself. This part here is where, if you have pests in your home, this is what they're going to use to make a nest. So now they're tearing into it. And then sometimes they're strong enough, they will tear through the inner lining. And now you will have air leaking from the air ducts and on into the attic space. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. This air filter, if you have this air filter on your system, one of the things we notice is that if you have it, when I go out to a house and I see this air filter, it's called a cartridge filter. It's designed to last about 6 months before you change it out. There are times you go out and we see these, and people will still have the traditional 30-day filters in place. If you have a cartridge filter like this, do not use the 30-day filters. Go ahead and remove those. The engineer who designed this AC system, designed the system to use a cartridge filter, and those HEPA type filters are actually pretty good when it comes to removing a lot of the pollen in the air, that especially if you have allergies, this is one of the ideal filters that you want to have. So just remember, change this out every 6 months. I used to always think it was 90 days, but it's actually 6 months, which is actually even better. Let's see. This amber light, anytime I see that amber light is flashing, if it's flashing, there's a problem with the system. Every system has a different, I call it a Morse code type pattern, because Carrier may flash 3 consecutive times and say, hey, that's an issue with the furnace. Ring may flash 2 consecutive times, pause, and then flash again. That may be their code way of doing it. Every system has a different method when it comes, but you know it's coming from the amber light. It's just the flashing pattern is what you're looking for based on the model and the manufacturer. That can tell you what you're looking at. But anyway, if you're the homeowner and you go up there and you see it flashing, yeah, go ahead and call a HVAC guy to come out there and look at it. And most of the times it's just a simple thing. They become bigger problems when you don't service your unit. Sometimes you're like on your furnace, you have a flame sensor, and that flame sensor, if it gets corroded, it's not gonna sense the flame. If it can't sense the flame, it's gonna shut the system down. Simple thing is the $30 part, but they may charge you a couple of hundred to put it in, and it's right there on your burner. But if you catch it at the right time, you just pull it off and change it yourself. This is a water heater. I would always say, always hire a professional. This water heater has so many problems. It was not sitting on the pedestal to have it raised at least 18 inches. There was on the gas line connection at the bottom, at this little white piece was called a manifold at the bottom. So you see this yellow pipe, this yellow flex line going into the manifold. There's supposed to be a drip leg there to catch all the sediment. None of that was there. At the top, I'm looking at this on the side here. Let's see if I can get it. Well, actually, I hit the next one, but it had so many issues. The drain line was not even put in right. This is another water heater. When you hear that knocking sound in your water heater, that's all the rust and the mineral deposits that are forming inside the water heater. So when it heats up, when that hot water heats up to a boiling point, that rust starts to lift and pop, break. And when it breaks, that's the popping sound that you hear. And when you hear that, go ahead and replace the water heater because it's just a matter of time before it starts to leak. And you don't want it to start leaking because if it leaks out fast enough, it's going to overtake the drain pan. If it overtakes that drain pan, you're going to get water that's going to start coming inside your home. Let's see. This is a new customer, new with construction, actually knew this client. Doing a plumbing check, and all along the bottom, all along the bottom down here, that was water coming out. It dried up so quick because it was extremely hot that day. But there was a bathroom right on the other side of this wall. And somewhere in there, I don't know if it was the drain line or the water supply line, but it was a leak between the walls. And then somebody had to come in and remove the drywall and make the repair. But it was leaking out here onto the side of the foundation. The reason why you don't want to ignore something like that is because that water that's collecting inside that wall, between those walls, over time, that can create a mold problem because the water is just sitting there and it's exposed to the indoor cool air and the outdoor warm air. And it's going to start to mold up. And then you'll start having respiratory problems, or you'll start seeing the mold spores starting to grow on the drywall inside the home. Let's see. This is a washer connection. This is an older home, but you can see the wood frame that was used around this to connect the drain line. Well, at the bottom here, that's all dry rotted out, and you can see down at this dry rot is still active. So that told me that the connections that are at the top, one of them had a leak behind the wall. And you can look at the bottom section of this picture. You can see where it's kind of yellow. That tells me that it was still active. So when I hit it with a thermal camera, it still showed a bluish color. So that told me there was a temperature change there. Didn't see any mold yet, not a lot anyway, but it was well on its way. So definitely want to get something like that taken care of. This is a termite problem. This home, termites decided to eat on the fence post. They were gone by the time the inspection was done on this home, but nevertheless, the damage was done. You want to go ahead and get in front of it. One thing about termites, they spawn every 6 months, and if they get to your property, you may not have them, but if they get there and the conditions are right, they'll set up camp there, then they'll start a family there, and 6 months later, that family may stay and the new family gonna take off after the spawning, or they may all leave if the conditions are not right. But if the conditions are met, yes, you will have termites. So it's always a good idea to keep your yard and your like this fence here, the bottom post, the drainage around the home was not good. So water was always collecting there. It's moist. It's starting to dry rot. So termites got a source of food right there. All they need is water. And they were having a field day on that fence post. Here's another termite issue. This started because the chimney cap was missing. Whoever owned this property had replaced the roof, but for some odd reason, the chimney cap was blown off. So you had anytime it rained, water was just getting inside the home. So as water is getting inside the home, you have right here, you can see that's your termite trails right here. Work their way down, all the way down. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 4 trails that they made. And they were getting out right there at that gas line connection. So they're working their way in the house. As a matter of fact, this house had termites near the main entry door at the front, the entry door from the garage, this fireplace, and I think it was another area upstairs. So yeah, it was going to be some extensive work that was going to need to be done to eliminate the termites in his home. Let's see. Again, this is supposed to be a video, but the thing is, it works a little different. This is when I click that button on the tester to trip that GFCI, it shut the light off in the bathroom. GFCIs are not supposed to be tied to the light fixture. And that told me when I saw it that somebody wired this up the wrong way. So that corrections needed to be made. And you know, you always want your home wired up the right way, because if there was a fire and you wired up your home incorrectly, that's why you hire the right people to go in there and do it. Insurance company come out and look at it, and you after you file your claim and they discover, oh well, this was not wired correctly. Who did this work? You know, because they're not going to cover it. So little things like that make a big difference. Always hire the professionals to do it if you do not know what you're going to be doing. Let's see. This is electrical. We got a host of issues here. Again, this was not a flip house. This was a house that someone purchased. It was in foreclosure. They decided to go in and rehab the property. And when they did the rehab on the property, the contractor left this pot light sitting in the attic. He just left it there. And the wiring, the Romex wiring here, all of that was resting on the attic floor. Excuse me. When you upgrade your electrical system, you have to bring it up to the National Electric Code. You have to bring it up to that standard. And this was not done. They just left the light sitting in there, but none of the Romex wiring was stapled to the framing members of the attic the right way. And we know water and electricity don't mix. These are PEX lines that they added, but these also were running across the attic access area. So all of this entering that attic area is a trip hazard. And the homeowner was not aware that the contractor did this. I was actually there for something totally different and discovered it and decided to tell them. So look at what you're doing. Make sure you hire people that know what they're doing, and you know, ask questions. Double back. Ask, what is this? Why are we doing this? After all, you know, you're paying for it. So you know, I want to know. I definitely want to know. Another contractor deal. The light switch is put in the shower area. I don't know what was the cause of this and what made them do this. This was so that's a shock hazard waiting to happen. You want to get electrocuted, that's a good way to make it happen. This is a pool pump station, just poorly maintained. And sometimes we have swimming pools, you know, jacuzzis and everything. And this, if I was a homeowner, if I was here and I'm looking to sell this, all of this would have to be cleaned up. None of my equipment would be resting on the ground. This box here, that's your timer, that needs to be replaced. That's dated. So sometimes if you're, and this is something I want to touch on again, if you're selling your home and you know that you have these issues, hire someone to go in and just get the house in seller's condition and then put it on the market. Because if you leave it as is, knowing that you have a lot of problems with your property, I can guarantee you an inspector is going to come through there and he's going to rip it apart. He's going to rip it apart. I actually did a house, I'm going to say this and get out of here. This was maybe about a week and a half ago out in Baytown. And the husband and wife, matter of fact, that's the house that I got bit by the dog. They had the $60,000 worth of upgrades in the house, and it showed. They redid the bathrooms, they redid the kitchen, but you still had a huge hole in the ceiling in the garage where they had a leak at some point. They actually had a lot of mold and mildew in the garage. The garage door didn't work. A lot of the upgrades that they put in the home were poorly done. So those things, when you spend that kind of money, you still had a major roof problem. You still had exterior issues on the outside. So where the money should have gone to make the house sellable, it didn't go there. It went inside the home, and I understand they did their upgrades and everything, but it wasn't done up to standard. Because as I'm going through and I'm looking at it, who did this work? You know, it's kind of saddening to see that. But the homeowner and the wife, they did not want to sell because they wanted every dime they put into the upgrades. They wanted that return on that, and I didn't want to tell them that's not going to happen, but it is what it is. So, you know, in conclusion, you know, we addressed the definition of the maintenance, our common areas. Don't do it yourself, and we talked about the warranties. And again, I want to touch on 3. Don't do it yourself if you don't know what you're doing. Don't do it because it's gonna cost you double in the end. And that pretty much concludes my presentation. Close this here. And we're going to go back to Nia.
Okay. We've got one question here in the chat, and there was a couple of them that had been emailed to me that I'll go over with you guys. It says, is there a possibility to get insurance or grants to pay for this versus our own personal money? I get ads all the time and wonder if they are or scams or not. And paying for this, I'm not sure if it was in reference to a particular part of your presentation or not. I think it popped up when you were doing something with the roof.
Okay, well, there are grants out there. Actually, start with the city. That's where I start with the Urban League. Even what is it, Rubicon Construction? Some of these companies, they know where the funding is. Your local city council member, they know. You know, those are starting points where you can find out who has what and what funding is available. But go in knowing that funding is limited. So it's
and you have to qualify.
And you have to qualify. No, those little things like that will make a big difference. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm almost certain you have to own that home, be current on taxes, the whole 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in most of those programs, the house definitely has to be in your name, not a grandmother's, grandparents' mother who's since passed, but you're now living in it and have possession of it. It actually has to be in your name. So if you have questions about clearing title issues, we've already had that presentation before to make sure or let you know what it is that you need to do in order to qualify for those different programs because you don't have the home in your name. Majority of the questions that were emailed to me is like, how do you manage and how do you know how to find the right contractor and the price that you're paying for repairs? What do people need to do when they're looking to hire contractors to do these repairs?
Sometimes you got, how can I start? Talk to your neighbors. If you've seen your neighbors having some work done, but if they hired their cousin to do it, personally, I wouldn't, you know, because not that they may not do the job right, they may do a great job. It's because I know they gave them a discount. That's family. They may have looked out for them. They don't look out for me like that. Know what your budget is. Sometimes even go to like Lowe's, Home Depot. They have contractors that they use. They subcontract their jobs out to those contractors. That's an area. Realtors, if you know a realtor, sometimes ask that realtor who would they recommend to go out and do who's your AC guy? Who is your foundation guy? Who do you have as your general contractor? Because most of the times in that case, I know with Lowe's and Home Depot and even with these realtors, you know one thing off the start. They got they're bonded, they're insured, and if they're licensed, if they need to be licensed, they are. It's those little things I can go in up front with some comfort. But that's me personally, that's where I would start. And some things, there's something else too. It may be a job that you can do yourself because you have, again, Lowe's and Home Depot offer free classes. So it may be a class that you can do. You go and sit in that class maybe an hour or so, You say, oh, okay, I know how to change out a light switch.
Or
Little things.
YouTube, or YouTube. That's how I
Yeah,
figured out how
YouTube
to
too.
relight
Yeah,
the pilot on my water heater. You know, like way back when you used to have to just put the
I
lighter
almost
down.
burned up the house as a kid doing that.
I was, I was about to do some damage and I didn't know what I was doing. I was down there trying to relight the pilot and it was a little push of a button. We have to push this button and push that at the same time the
Kicked
little
in,
electric igniter put the thing back on. I'm like,
about to
it
blow
was
up the
just
whole
that
house.
simple. Here I was out there sweating in that garage trying to figure out how I was gonna get that done, but I found it. So YouTube it if nothing else. If you it could be something so simple. Um, when you were talking about the thing in the furnace, what's average person like goes into their attic looking at the furnace to see if there's a light flashing there? Who I don't go in my attic, so I don't know what's up there and what my furnace looks like.
Well, I always say it pays to know. Here's why. It may be that's the HVAC thing, knowing that code. Like I say, every manufacturer has a different code. It's like a Morse code, flashing lights. And we don't even use Morse code no more, but there it is. But it's a series of flashing lights, and that's how you know what's the issue with your furnace. And sometimes, like on your the cover, you may have like the little grill on it, has the labors on it, so there's airflow in there. You may see it flashing, or sometimes you may have what's called a closed system, and the glass is just right there. You can see it flashing there. That's usually the best way to see it. But when you see it flashing, and it'll the code will tell you the problem, but a lot of times we see it. We know what it is. If my furnace is not kicking in, one of the most common problems I see with a furnace is, like, say, the igniter goes out. The igniter, like, sometimes when you turn on your furnace, you'll hear it blowing, and then it's not blowing hot air, and then maybe 30 seconds later you'll hear it kick, like you'll hear that flame kick in, and then you'll start smelling all the dust and everything that's collected up over the summer. But sometimes when you're trying to get your unit to start and it won't kick in, you hear the click at the thermostat. You hear it, like you can hear the motor in the attic. You hear it starting to wind up, and then boom, it stops. And it's usually the igniter. Igniter just went bad. Go ahead and replace it, or it'll start and then it'll stop. Well, it'll start and it'll stop because the igniter will light it, but the flame sensor doesn't sense the flame because the part is bad, and it'll just go out. So I always say sometimes when, like, it's like your car. After so many thousand miles, BMW say, okay, look, it'll be a good idea to change this part out now, even though it's still good. But change this part out now so you won't be on the side of the road with having to tow it back and then get it changed out. You see what I mean? It's like your tires. After so many thousands of miles, you want to change them out. It's wear and tear on the parts. I told my son the same thing with his furnace. Couldn't get it to kick in, and told him what was wrong with it. And he's a resourceful little rascal. He took the flame sensor off the furnace, cleaned it down with some sandpaper because there had a lot of corrosion on it. Put it back in, fired right up. Little things.
Okay. Considering the climate we are in with all of this heat, it's definitely not as bad as it was last year because at least we're getting some rain this year.
Yeah.
What are some of the keys or something that you would tell somebody about maintenance in this particular hot climate? What they can do? Because especially with as being as dry as it has been, people getting the cracks, foundation issues.
Foundation issues. One, you would water your yard. Make sure because you want the foundation to stay consistent. So if you got the moisture consistent all the way around the home, that makes a big difference because the clay soil that we have out here expands and contracts. So if you keep it consistent, there's less foundation movement. If it dries up enough, there's going to be the foundation movement. As far as the AC, look at your air ducts. Make sure you don't have anything resting on your air ducts. There are times I've gone in the attic space and we come in from that vacation and we throw that suitcase up in the attic and it's resting right there on the it's resting right on one of your air ducts. So it collapsed the air duct. So there's no air movement going to wherever that duct was running. There's no air movement there. Servicing your units, you know, that, again, I always say that because it's an issue. Changing out your filters. I've seen air filters. I mean, they have so much lint on them, you can just roll it off of the. It looked like wool. You can just roll it off. The air filter never been changed, but we have to. We see it all the time because you have. This is something that if I came from India or Pakistan, and I say it because this is one of the clients that I had. They don't know about maintenance of an AC. All they know, if they turn it on, do this and this, I can get some cold air. They don't know about maintenance. And I got a call one time and he said he wasn't getting any airflow. Well, they had a dog too, and it was full of dog hair. One of the type of dogs that shit. They had been living in that house for about 3, maybe 4 years. Never changed the filter out.
It's nasty.
It happened.
When you talked about water in the foundation, so Ms. Nikki, have you seen as far as the market goes, how foundation issues impact the value of somebody's houses, like when they're trying to go and sell it and things like that because of foundation repairs or roof repairs that need to be done?
I thought Clifford hit the nail on the head earlier. A lot of times you'll go up and you'll see the patches where the work has been done, and they'll say, "Oh, they've had foundation work. We don't want to buy this house." No, in Houston, because of our soil, your foundations are going to move. There's just no way. There is a way around it, but don't nobody want to pay that. This one commercial architect developed his own home, and he put in his home the kind of foundation that they put for like commercial buildings. So over the course of like 70 years, his house has shifted like less than a centimeter. But nobody's gonna pay for that, right? You're not gonna pay for that with your house. You're not a commercial architect. But so if you would rather see that the work had been done, because we have seen where foundation issues have blown up a sale because it was just, I mean, you were essentially going to have to pull everything up, the repair, but they'll put in beautiful floors and flooring and all of that. Then you have to get that foundation repair. Walls are cracking, doors are moving, floors are cracking, because you want to fix the foundation before you do anything else if there's a foundation problem. And so, and we can tell because you'll see it in, somebody say, well, how do you know? Well, you'll look along the foundation itself from the exterior. You'll see if you see cracks there. You'll look in the hardy and the siding and the brick, and you'll see if you see cracks running along the inside of the walls. Things like door sticking can be a sign that the foundation has shifted too much. You'll start seeing the little sheetrock cracks, and that'll be a sign that there are some foundation issues. And so, you want to try to do those things before you start doing the other work. Otherwise, you waste money. And if you don't have them done and you need to be done, it might be what'll keep you from being able to move your property at all.
Another question just popped up here. If we need to add proper drainage, who should we contact? Should we go to a contractor or a landscaper?
I would go with a grading contractor. Someone, if they're referring to proper drainage around the home, and I'm going to assume that's what they mean, then I would I wouldn't do a landscaper, because landscapers, they're just beautify what's there. I would hire if they're a landscaper with grading experience, then go for it. But really, you need a grading contractor, because you want the house to sit up and slightly on the swales around the house. The house sits high, and the swales around the house helps channel the water away from the house and out to the street.
You said it swells around the house?
Swale, S-W-A-L-E. The swale is you ever notice when you're in the backyard?
Like you break it down,
we
Cliff,
heard the same word.
You ever step in the backyard of a home and look like it's like a little trench?
A little slope, okay,
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's your swell. That's
okay,
your swell. It just swells up around the home. And that's the water comes from that. It's like, say we're at the fence line, the water works its way to the middle of the yard. That's usually where the swell is. And it starts to part off either to the right or to the left and run down the side of your house toward the front. That's why it has to be properly graded. And that's why I would say I would choose a grading contractor as opposed to a landscaping contractor. Because they have to know, they have to measure that, see what we're doing. No gutters is a surefire way of having premature foundation issues. And I see a lot of those now, even with the new homes.
Mhm.
Sometimes, and this is I call it a trick. You know, that's just me. But yeah, when you buying a new home, the new home sales offer saying, yeah, we give you gutters too, but you're only getting the gutters at the front. So I think it's misleading, but it's not. So you, as the consumer, need to be the one ready to ask those necessary questions. Hey, are we getting gutters all the way around? You know, because when I point it out to any potential buyer, they are sometimes in shock when they say, "Oh, well, I thought I had gutters all the way around." No, you have gutters, but you only have gutters in the front. So if I were you, I would get me some more gutters around my home. Those little things make a difference. I want to touch back on that AC issue because this was something that came up when we talk about the cartridge filters. That filter that sits under the one we're talking about that sit there, change it out every 6 months. That's a cartridge filter you pull out, replace it instead of the 30-day filters. Well, I went to a home and they had both of them in place. I was there to do the inspection. And I told them, well, when y'all need to take these out, you only need the cartridge filter. They apparently they didn't do it. I get a call back. The AC company, well, actually, they had a problem with the AC. Right after that, maybe a month or so, the thing went out. And the when it went out, it so much poor airflow. When your airflow is not good, you got to remember that super cool air that's going to be running across your evaporator coil that's up there in the attic. It ain't moving fast, so it's icing up on whatever it's making contact with. So it's making contact over that coil, and then it thaws out, and then it freezes again. So that constant heat, hot and cold, cause the unit to, eventually to start to leak. Well, the warranty company told them they weren't going to pay for it because when they pulled the cartridge filter out, that cartridge filter had been up there so long it was black. Little things like your maintenance makes a big difference. Always make a big difference with your maintenance. And we
do
told them
all,
before, get rid of all of that.
do all furnaces have the cartridge filter?
No,
Oh,
no,
no,
no.
okay,
A lot of the new ones have it. They're better. I mean, it's like it's better to have it. Even some of the new entry level homes have them. Most entry level homes now they have them. It's not all of them. A lot of times when you upgrade your system, you'll see them there. But for the most part, I still see if I do 10 houses, maybe 3 will have the cartridge filter. The rest will still have the traditional 30-day filters. And like I said, you got to change them out. Change those out, because if you don't have a problem, you're going to end up with a problem. Even with your plumbing, when you start hearing that little knock sound on your water heater, yeah, it's time to go ahead and start getting your funds together to go ahead and replace it. Because crazy part about it, and we see this all the time, water heater starts to leak. Start leaking in the middle of the night or when you at work. It don't leak when you at home for the weekend. It starts when it's just to pick the right time to start leaking. So little things like that make a difference. We look at little, you want to you hear it, go ahead and get in front of it, take care of it. Even around like little things around your window. I'm seeing, this is on new houses too, but even older homes, your house has a lot of movement around the windows and doors. So therefore, you're going to start creating spaces in those areas, and mainly around your doors where they're going to start to get the daylight in. Just replace the weather strip. Just add You don't want to go too big with the weather stripping because if it's oversized, you're not gonna be able to close that door. But if you keep it the proper size, that weather stripping, you put that in there, you don't want your air escaping out the door. It's just like throwing money out the door because that's all your air, your cold air is just escaping right there. You break a window pane, go ahead and get that window pane replaced. I mean, the stove issue, the appliances, a lot of times we have, like say, again, this is a house from yesterday. They homeowner never, you can tell that dishwasher had been used in some years, but it hadn't been used in so many years because it was a blockage in the line and the homeowner didn't know how to take care of the blockage that was in the line. So what they ended up doing was shutting off the water supply to the dishwasher. Now the house is on the market and the dishwasher is not working. Now, had they gotten that taken care of, you probably wouldn't have to come out of pocket or have to lower whatever you're doing, lower your price or doing a concession for that dishwasher, because that's what's going to happen. That same house, again, we're going to go back to the ACs. The same house had what they call a dual thermostat control system. One thermostat upstairs, one thermostat downstairs. Downstairs was cooling great. Upstairs, it's like 90 degrees up. The problem with that is, and I went up there and I looked while I was doing the inspection, I didn't see a LED indicator flashing on the damper. The damper is a motor that is put inside the air duct, and it helps with the air movement through the home. I may want it to be 74 upstairs, 72 upstairs and 74 downstairs. Well, that damper that's in there is gonna open and close enough to regulate how much airflow I want to put in. You see what I mean? And that's what makes the difference. Well, when it goes out, it went out in a position where it completely blocked off the air to the second floor. That's a costly job. Anything over $500 is costly. That job there, I can tell you, it's going to cost them probably anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000 to do it, depending on how many dampers they have to replace. But when you put the house on the market, you got to make it sell. If you want to enjoy the comforts of your home, you got to make sure you keep the house in working order. One problem that house is going to have over time is they're going to continuously have a higher utility bill, because with the way the system works is that air that's running through your house is circulating through. If it's going through at 75 at this time, when it comes back around, it may drop it down to 72. And it may maintain at 72. But if I got to compete with this hot air that's up at the top that's mixing in, it's never going to get where it needs to be. It's going to have to run longer than expected because of the damper issue. So that's why, again, maintenance is key. Even things like pests. The inspector may go in there and say, "Oh, the home, again, your house is on the market. You may see a wasp nest here in the front, a little small one. Let's just say it's to the front off to the left. Yeah, it's no big deal. As you're going, and this happens, you get to the front door, there's a nest at the front door, and it's huge. Why? How did it get that big and undetected? Because most people don't leave and enter at the front door. They leave from the garage, so that area is undisturbed. So it grew over time. Now, the potential home buyer sees it. Oh, I want full pest control services on the home. Just because of that. Now, don't just get rid of the wasp nest, but we got fire ants now. Look. That look like termites. We don't know if it's termites or not, but that's what it looks like. So if you put the if you leave, I call them traps. If you leave the traps out there, and the buyer is out there with us, I want this, and this. Are they going to get all of that? No. It's rare. You may get, if you do 50 houses, you may get one seller that'll say, "Okay, I'm gonna take care of everything. Don't worry about it." The rest, go and put your battle boots on because you go on the war. It's just the nature of the beast.
Oh, goodness. Ms. Nikki, is there anything else that you'd like to add as we kind of wrap up and close?
Just to be mindful in this time where prices have gone up and you're finding more people being disingenuous and dishonest in their dealings. Be careful how you pay for things that you're having done. Do not pay 100% for something that is not 100% completed. You know, we found lots of people who have made payments toward things and never saw those contractors again. Get as
Mhm.
much as you can in writing so that you're able to protect yourself. And if at all possible, when they ask, how do you know, who you should use, try to, use somebody use somebody that you trust. You get what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
you want to have a relationship with the person who gave you the introduction to whoever you're going to use, because hopefully that should help you to avoid some of those things that are happening in the market right now.
Indeed. Cliff, any closing words?
Um, maintain your home. Don't skip.
Is what do they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a
A pound
pound
of
of
cure.
cure.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, indeed. All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon and for both of you guys for taking time out of your schedule to provide this information. Next month we will be back. We are here the third Wednesday um, of each month to provide this information for you. It says everything y'all discussed today was truth. Everyone did a great job presenting. So happy had the time today to log on. Well, we thank you definitely for joining us this afternoon. Tomorrow we've got the HOA foreclosure presentation presented by Lone Star Legal Aid. That's going to be tomorrow at 1 p.m. If you guys are having issues with your HOA, or if you want to know what they can or cannot do or legally responsible for, or what they or how it is what the process is for them actually foreclosing on your property, and you want to prevent that from happening, then definitely join us for that. We've got coffee and conversation that's scheduled for next Tuesday, the 27th at 10 a.m. Rachel, do you want to speak on coffee and conversation?
Yes, Nia. So Tuesday, Coffee and Conversation will be held at the Kashmir Multi-Service Center from 10 to 12 p.m. from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Even though it's in the Kashmir area, everyone is welcome to attend. Department of Neighborhoods will be discussing what our department is in charge of, which a lot of people, our IPS department, which is inspections and services, covers overgrown, weeded lots, you know, abandoned buildings, things of that nature. We're also going to have 311 there, explaining that process, and the opportunity to be able to see if you're eligible to receive a free will, free estate planning, protecting your generational wealth. All those services will be available at Kashmir again on Tuesday, August 27th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
And then on Wednesday, the 28th, we have our property tax and exemptions and payment options presentation, and we're going to be in person for that one at the Sunnyside Multi-Service Center at 4410 Reed Road. So if you guys are interested in getting that information and coming on back out, we're trying to slowly incorporate some in-person presentations again to try to get the community members that we have not been able to reach over the last several years to kind of come back out and get re-engaged. So we want to make sure that we're not missing out and not able to present that information to those communities that have this technical divide, we know that they need to receive this information as well. So we're slowly kind of getting back out in person. So we will be in person for coffee and conversation, as well as our property tax and a couple of others throughout the quarter for the remainder of the year. So if you guys have any questions about those or any upcoming workshops that we have, go to the website at nrcdc.org on the events page, and you will see the calendar listed there. I will also be emailing a copy of the of the schedule for the remaining month of August, as well as a link of the recording of this conversation that we've had today, so that you guys can go back and review it or share it. We're asking at each one of these presentations that you pay it forward and share the information that is provided here for you today. Because again, we know that there are a lot of underserved communities that are out there. We know that there are a lot of people that don't have access to a lot of information. So we want to try to get that information out to as many people as we possibly can. So definitely pay it forward, share the video, or invite them to come back next month and sit down and have a kumbaya over lunch, while you're watching the video or something, make it a family thing if you want to, make it an evening event if you want to watch the video again. But these workshops are available on our YouTube page, as well as on our Facebook page. And again, the links will be emailed out for you to go back and watch the recording as well. So we want to thank you all. If there are any workshops that we don't currently offer that you all may be interested in, please feel free to reach out to Rachel or myself. If there are any other questions that you all may have of the presenters, I will have their contact information included on the email that I send out to you guys. So in case you are interested in their services or need some additional information, then you have the opportunity to contact them as well. So with that being said, again, thank y'all for joining us. Miss Nikki, Mr. Clifford, thank y'all very much, very, very much for providing this information to the community. We appreciate you. We love you guys so, so very dearly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we hope you all have a wonderful remainder of your afternoon. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, stay cool outside.
Mm.
Cooling centers, that's the other thing. Are there still cooling centers
Yes.
around? Okay, so
Yes.
look, I guess probably 311. You can contact 311 if you want to know about cooling centers in the area that you can go to. Check on your neighbors, those loved ones. Somebody might be sitting inside right now without any AC, and you guys may never know. So please check on your neighbors, those loved ones, just to see how they're doing and making sure everybody is good and that they're okay. So y'all take care, and we will see y'all again next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.